All right, welcome to Pakistan Radio. I'm your host, Lindsay Lefevre, and it is August 2047. And today is the 100th anniversary of Pakistan's partition. And we'll be talking about how Pakistan got to where it is today. With us, we have Pakistani expert Brady Cook, who has spent his entire life devoted to the study and research of Pakistan. Today we're focusing on the most recent 50 years of Pakistan's history. But Brady, would you mind catching us up to date?
Sure. Hi, this is Pakistani expert Brady Cook. I'm going to give you a brief summary about the history of Pakistan. Pakistan is separated from India in 1947. Since then, Pakistan has been struggling in a state of drift. Pakistan and India have been butting heads constantly. There have been many corrupt leaders at the head of Pakistan, as well as many military coups taking over. Our country has not come far this 100 of years.
Thanks, Brady. Wow. Now we're going to turn to our listeners and see what questions they have about Pakistan.
So I know that in Pakistan up until 2014, only about half the men were literate and even less women. So since 2014, how has the education and literacy changed?
What would you say, Brady?
Well, as you can see from the graph provided, in 1957 the total literacy rate was at 16.4%. In 2009 the total raised to 57%. Now the rates are at an all-time high at 85%. This has affected the unemployment rates drastically. The unemployment rate is now at 5%.
Wow, sounds like things have improved for Pakistan a little bit in the past 50 years. Now we're going to have a prize question for our listeners. We're going to ask you a question, and the first person to call in will receive a free CD of Pakistan's top 10 hits of the past century. So here is our question. What are the top 3 languages spoken in Pakistan today? Let's see, on the phone we have Danielle from California. What would you say, Danielle?
I believe they are English, Urdu, and Hindi.
Yes, that is correct. These languages, each of them represent the 3 main influences on Pakistan today: the Western culture, Islam, and Pakistan's neighbor, India. Well, while we have Danielle on the phone, let's see, do you have any questions for our expert?
Yeah, I'd like to know what changes have been made in the government since 2014.
Well, Brady, would you mind if I take this question?
You got it.
Okay. Well, we know through Pakistan's history that there have been just corrupt leaders after corrupt leaders trying to rule Pakistan, and many military coups, like Brady mentioned. But honestly, things have not changed all that much with the government since then. They have continued to muddle along and just remain adrift as they have sought for power. And because they keep seeking for power, this hinders their ability to really help the country. Even though things have improved a little bit in the country over time, it has the government has had very little input on that because there's just so much civil unrest and no major institutional reforms since 2014. So that's kind of where things are going today, and the Taliban is always keeping things spiced up. So I have a question for our listeners. How has the Taliban been influential in Pakistan in these past 50 years? We're going to turn to Dayla Canyons from Indiana on the phone with some more information about the Taliban.
So the peace talks in 2014 led to several peaceful years in Pakistan. However, as westernization grew more apparent, the Taliban retaliated and grew in power. There continues to be violence throughout the country today.
Okay, man, that Taliban. Can't get rid of them.
I have a question for you.
Oh, yeah?
I heard that Pakistani people didn't have toilets. Is that true?
Oh, that's a very good question. Well, let's see if any other listeners have an answer. Let's see. Danielle?
Pakistan does have toilets, contrary to this listener's belief, but as of 2014, about half of the residencies had a toilet in their home, but currently the number of homes in Pakistan with toilets is about 80%. It's an improvement of only about 30% over the past 30 years, and in comparison to the United States, not great improvement. But it just kind of shows the focus of where the government is.
Right, and so it sounds like the West has had quite an influence on Pakistan these past few years. What other ways would you say the West has impacted Pakistan's culture?
Well, with Islam tradition, Pakistani children are usually in arranged marriages, but those seem to be decreasing every year, as well as the laws being lifted more recently on the clothing that women are to wear. They aren't as strict on how much they cover. So.
Okay, wow. Well, thank you. Thank you, all of our listeners, and thank you, Brady Cook, for joining us.
It was my pleasure.
Well, that's all we have for today, so tune in next week for our next episode on Pakistan. Good evening and good night.
RadioRhythms.fm.
When the night has come, when the night has come and the land is dark. When the night has come, when the night has come and the land is dark. And the moon is the only light, and the moon is the only light, and the moon is the only light. We will sing, darling, darling.
Oh, meherma, mere meherma. पूरी है दुआ अब कुछ भी